Breaking. Just 60 seconds ago, an event without precedent in modern British political history has just detonated live on national television. If you are sitting down, grip your chair. If you are standing, find something to lean on. Because what Prince William just did wasn't merely a statement. It was a sledgehammer blow delivered straight to the solar plexus of number 10 Downing Street. And Prime Minister Karma, he froze. He went completely, utterly silent. A terrifying, paralyzed silence that this country hasn't seen from a sitting leader in decades. Let's rewind the clock just a few moments. It started as the most routine of interviews. It was bland, almost sleep-inducing, a brightly lit studio, carefully screened questions, and the usual polished safe answers Starmer had prepared to soothe the public regarding his recent controversial reforms. The atmosphere in the studio was calm, perhaps even tedious. Labour aides standing in the wings had their arms crossed, nodding along, satisfied with their boss's flawless performance. They thought tonight would be smooth sailing. They thought they were in control. They were wrong. Catastrophically wrong. The moment the host pivoted to the sensitive topic of national heritage and traditional values, the very thorn Starmer has tried to bury for weeks, everything shifted. The Prime Minister opened his mouth, ready to deploy a technical evasive dodge when suddenly, boom, the live feed split. No warning, no statement from the palace. The screen behind the Prime Minister flared to life. And there it wasn't a stock clip. It was Prince William. He appeared live from Windsor. No ceremonial robes, just a dark suit, white shirt, open collar. But his eyes, those eyes were razor sharp, staring straight into the camera lens as if he were looking right through the screen and into the soul of the man sitting in the studio. No notes, no teleprompter. Just William with a calmness that was absolutely chilling. And then he said it 11 words. Just 11 words. But with a blast radius wider than any political speech in the last 10 years. When leaders forget the people they serve, institutions don't crumble. Trust crumbles. Time seemed to stop. In the studio, the air was sucked out of the room. The host's jaw dropped, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, glancing panic-stricken toward the production crew. But no one moved. Everyone was frozen. But the real shock wave was on the other side of The camera zoomed in tight on Karma's face. And that is the clip that will be played on political loops for the next 50 years. The Prime Minister couldn't speak. He blinked rapidly, his lips parted, but no sound came out. He glanced sideways at his advisor off camera, a look of desperate pleading, but he was met only with the total confusion of his own team. The confidence, the composure, the armor of a veteran politician, it all evaporated in a split second. He sat there exposed, stripped of every defense with millions of eyes glued to the screen. That silence lasted 9 seconds. 9 seconds. In television, 1 second of dead air is a glitch. 3 is a disaster. But 9. That is destruction. Viewers at home started grabbing their remotes, thinking the feed had cut out. But no, the audio was still live. You could hear the heavy breathing, the frantic whispers leaking from the control room. Starmer had been checkmated in his own arena. William didn't need to shout. He didn't need to name policies. He just dropped a truth bomb. And the pressure of it paralyzed the entire Labour media machine. But the most terrifying part wasn't the silence. It was what happened next. Because William wasn't finished. He held his gaze on the lens, his voice dropping an octave. Steady, respectful, yet devastatingly heavy. Britain's heritage isn't a bargaining chip. And those who treat it like one should reconsider the weight of their responsibilities. That wasn't a warning. That was a declaration of war. And in that instant, every person in Britain knew the game had changed. The moment those red on-air lights finally flickered off, the studio didn't just become noisy, it became a war zone. What viewers saw at home was a sudden cut to a commercial break, a desperate attempt by the network to stop the bleeding. But what happened inside that room the second the camera stopped rolling was a scene of absolute, unadulterated chaos. Witnesses described the atmosphere as suffocating. Keir Starmer, the man known for his rigid discipline, didn't just stand up, he erupted. He ripped the lavalier microphone from his lapel with such force that the clip snapped, throwing it onto the glass desk with a clatter that echoed through the silent studio. His face, previously pale with shock, had turned a deep, furious crimson. He turned to his lead advisor, a man who minutes ago looked smug, and reportedly hissed a single question that dripped with venom. How did he get access to the feed? There was no answer because there was no answer to give. Labor aides were spotted sprinting, actually sprinting through the corridors of the studio, clutching tablets that were lighting up like Christmas trees. They were trying to get ahead of the story, but the story was already moving faster than light. Within 3 minutes of William's transmission ending, William versus Labour had shot to the #1 trend globally. Not just in the UK, globally. Social media didn't just react, it detonated. It lit up like a bonfire in a petrol factory. The clip of William's 11-word strike was being shared across X, formerly Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at a rate of 40,000 times per second. The comments section wasn't a debate. It was a massacre. For every one comment defending the Prime Minister, there were 500 praising the Prince. Memes of Star's frozen, terrified face were already flooding the internet before he had even left the building. Back in the green room, the mood was funeral dark. Starmer's communications director was heard shouting into a phone, demanding to speak to the Director General of the BBC, threatening consequences, demanding to know if this was a coordinated ambush. But the person on the other end of the line reportedly said something that made the color drain from the director's face. It wasn't a hack. It was an authorized override. The signal came from a Royal Secure line. Let that sink in. An authorized override. This wasn't a rogue technician. This wasn't a prank. This was the monarchy flexing a muscle that Downing Street had forgotten existed. While the Prime Minister tried to recover his footing, pushing past makeup artists and junior producers who looked too terrified to make eye contact, a different kind of storm was brewing outside. A crowd had already begun to gather at the studio exit. Usually these are just autograph hunters. Today, they were chanting, and they weren't chanting for Labour. Inside the secure government vehicle waiting at the back exit, Starmer finally exhaled. It was the kind of exhale you only hear from a man who realizes he has walked into a trap he didn't see coming. He pulled out his phone, likely expecting a damage control briefing. Instead, he saw the polling data from a flash survey conducted in the last 10 minutes.